Welcome back yes, again to another episode of our Uganda Diaspora show here on Civic Space TV. My name is Lynn Kyomugisha, and with me this today is Francis Kamuhanda. We have Miriam Kyomugasho, and of course, Okot Ochen. Thank you indeed for joining us. I hope you are well. As you can see, there's a change. How are you guys handling this, the shift in the timing? Well, we're to see that. Today, we want to look at a very interesting conversation, and I'm sure most of you are probably itching to know what's happening in Uganda because there's so much, so much, so much. I'm going to highlight a few, and then we can always add on that. We've had the Parliament exhibition that has been going on for now close to almost 3 weeks, and this has been looking at the happenings in Parliament, and this has actually brought to the fore lots of corruption issues. Um, we saw that not so long ago, the fallout of the former leader of opposition, and that is Mathias Mpuga and Bobby Wine, and of course, the chaos that is happening in the National Unity Platform. It's threatening to shake its roots in Buganda and Masaka. We have to see how that plays out. Then about a night ago or so, there was a cabinet reshuffle and of course changes also in the UPDF. And let me tell you, this has everybody talking, has everybody on their toes, questions here and there. And this actually ushered us, really opened our eyes properly to our road to 2026. It is in high gear. We have engaged. I think we are now set to go into the elections 2026. So far, that is briefly what I have, but there's so much. I just want to run through each one of you and see maybe you have something that you think we have missed out. I'll start with you, Okot Ochen. What is standing out for you in the Uganda diaspora, politics?
Yeah, thank you very much, and my greetings and salutations to everybody out there. I think from where I sit, I find it very exciting. Lots has been occurring, in Uganda, and I can say that we just had also by-elections in Doklo, whereby Aguti, the UPC party candidate, went through, and I'm happy for UPC. I have a soft spot for UPC historically. And though, I was in for, the daughter of the late Imad Sisi, to me, she came across very, informative, exposed, and value added. But because, local politics are always very, interesting. There are different tribal dynamics and perspectives that kind of compromises always the bigger picture. So Aguti from my previous party, emerged victorious. So I'm happy for UPC on that note. And then also, of course, the saga in the Uganda Parliament. I cannot say that I cannot comment about it. It's very interesting, and I look forward to expounding more in the due course of our conversations, and of course also the cabinet reshuffle and the UPDF changes. Some are not very much surprises, and some are minimal and some are interesting. The one in the cabinet, there are no major changes in the cabinet, but just a little bit of panel beating. While in the UPDF, I think caught most guys off guard. So thank you. I look forward to expounding more on those aspects. Thank you.
All right, thank you, of course. Francis Kamuhanda, I'm sure you're very excited about Baram Barugahari.
Lynn, I don't think, to be honest, but I'm not surprised because this is a government of comedians and fishermen and so on. So it is the time for everyone to shine. But also at the same time, I know it is the big man, I think, maybe saw that the sun was gaining a lot of momentum because Barugahari was mobilizing. It had turned how do they call it even? I don't know. Was a great mobilizer. So giving the sun the position of responsibility will not make him now move. And Barugahari, who would remain mobilizing, should be cut and followed into the cabinet, and then that will tell a little bit the patriotic movement. That is my own thinking.
Francis, we will get to the gist of it all, but quickly tell us what's making headlines your way and, of course, Uganda diaspora.
What is making my headlines, like in the diaspora here, Trump again is on the ballot paper. So for American politics, that means a lot. But again, also at the same time, is I always follow the wars that are taking place in the world and different countries at loggerheads. So to me, that is worrying. But then back home I should say I was happy for UPC winning the seat. I always think that if the parties in opposition keep winning seats, then that is the way to go. It will increase the checks and balances if they are not bought, because how some have been swallowed up. And then, of course, like as I said, every time I see a wedge in the opposition and what happened in Nup, it is a little bit confusing to me. And the cabinet reshuffle, that is the big man's family. So he keeps, like, the law is legal because he wishes it so. So that one it will not come to me as news, but I'm not surprised. I only expect it. So for now, that's what I can say. And then I look forward for a healthy conversation. Thank you.
Fantastic. Miriam, what's making headlines for you? I'm sure you're excited as well about our new Chief of Defense Forces.
Of course. Yeah, I found it actually amusing that Seven is living Idi Amin's dream of having his son as a commander of the military forces when he is a military dictator. So 40 years after, I think Amin is smiling in his grave that someone finally achieved what he had aspired to achieve and failed. And it's, I don't want to think like it's unfortunate or it's a new development because nobody's shocked about it. It's been in a way coming, and I think it's been a de facto CDF in a way, because whenever they would be having like foreign campaigns in DRC, you would see him even giving statements before the official statements are out. And so nobody's surprised, but that's it. That's where we are today. So the minister, the wife is still a minister, the son is in charge of the army, the father is in charge. I mean, they've been talking about the Trinity, but I think I don't know whether the Trinity, the Holy Spirit, shares some power with the Father and whatever, but I like to think that now we ultimately have the dictatorship that everybody was trying to avoid. And it's Museveni all the way. We don't even have a Bank of Uganda governor, and I'm sure he's the one acting as a governor. So we just there, yeah, and it's unfortunate. Looking back at the 1986 dream, I don't want to think about the 86 dream of NRM and fundamental change was Museveni's like only a single person idea. I mean, he could have had ideas in his head, but this was a joint people's campaign, And most Ugandans sacrifice to see good change in Uganda as far as politics is concerned. But see where we are today, 30 years later, and what have we achieved? If we look back and assess Uganda as a post-independence nation, how far have we gone in building that young country as far as democracy is concerned? And it's like we are moving backwards, and the future is very bleak, and that is very unfortunate because we can't even hold any free and fair elections. So if you can't hold elections, that means you don't even have a chance of changing power or choosing your own leaders. And yeah, what is next?
Okay, interesting. Because honestly, everybody here is saying so much, and as we shall dive into it, I think I don't even know where to start from, because the fire that we have here in Uganda is quite interesting. But I want us to perhaps start from the point of us preparing for 2026, because all this, all that we have talked about falls therein. As we gear up, as we prepare for the elections 2026, there's so much that's happening. And we find ourselves in this position at this moment, with everybody speculating that with the recent developments. Now, let's just begin with the topmost, the reshuffle, so that we saw Muhoozi loyalists coming into cabinet. For some reason, one was saying that there's lots of speculation that it is the president trying to, say, bring Muhoozi loyalists closer to him, and of course, rally them to mobilize for 2026. But then the question remains: what happens to PLU, his party, the party that he had formed? All those questions are in here. But now I want to start from right on the head. We are at a point where the Muhoozi ascent to the highest rank in the military is a sign of succession. And I want to begin with you, Okot. What do you make of this? Because this is what everybody is saying, and speculating that maybe somehow the military is going to play a major role in the succession that everybody has been waiting for.
Thank you very much, and you're absolutely spot on. It's common knowledge that Mr. Museveni, thrives, on gunpowder, and he has kept, his stay in power over and over with the gun, And I always tell fellow Ugandans who say that Mr. Museveni has changed. I would say that no, the gentleman has not changed. He has been very consistent, but I can only say that he acts always in a very, very cunning, shrewd, casual, and sometimes very contemptuous, And that took many Ugandans, by surprise. So Museveni has never changed, his vision and his ideology. He believes in the gun. He believes in himself. Though he duped so many prominent Ugandans, you can name. Some walked out and formed their own parties. Some have even now joined the civil society. So what's happening now with the present changes in the military and the cabinet is a sure testimony that General Museveni is shaping a succession. He has been grooming, MK over the years. If you remember, I think in the mid 90s, Muhoozi never joined the military formally. He first began by telling Ugandans that he was just an LDU. Okay, there was an LDU. I remember I was in high school then. It was an LDU. Then later, the late Gaddafi came, and gave him promotion of a major from nowhere. And then from there, he began going out and he had fast rise, in ranks and promotions. So it's a clear, it's a clear picture that the young man has been groomed, and as Mr. Museveni, age is catch up with him, is trying to position his son in the right place. And I hear people saying that the PLU is intentionally being kind of deflated. In my situational analysis and perspectives, I don't think so. I think instead, Mr. Museveni is now trying to orient the PLU, high hierarchy, to get more kind of climatized, with how to run government. Because I can see Balaam is the vice chair of Western Uganda. Lynn is the vice chair for Northern Uganda. And even a person like Frank Kyomugasho is a very, is a very strong, fan of the PLU. So there are so many, proponents of the PLU within the new cabinet. So in my situational and political kind of social analysis, I would argue that he's actually trying now to throw the fish in the water to swim. So if the time comes, they will not be gambling. They'll be able to steer the country. And by also General MK being given the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, I don't think that will deter him from going out. This general is very contemptuous, is very insensitive. He doesn't mind. Even now, what he has been doing before, he has been holding rallies. He has been doing things that are contrary to what the Constitution. He knows. If you're active serving soldier or army officer, by law or by the military kind of stipulations, you are not allowed to take part in active kind of activism the way he was doing. So I don't think him being placed as a commander of the armed forces is going to deter him and his followers to pursue their goals and objectives. I think, in fact, they will be more empowered. They will have more state resources to mobilize. To mobilize, you don't have to do it yourself. You can use, your kind of cohorts and allies to do that. So I'm very sure that for me, Mr. Museveni is very determined to make MK, to take over in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Okot. Now, Francis, coming to you, we know that General Kainerugaba is a controversial figure, becoming increasingly involved in the political arena over the years. We've seen him hold rallies. He has breached military protocols. There was that argument. And quite not long ago, in 2022, he was sacked, if you remember, as a commander of the Army's land forces after he made threats on Twitter, known as X, to invade neighboring Kenya. Remember, the president also issued an apology to Kenya's leader, asking Kenyans for forgiveness on behalf of his son. Now, with all that and many other issues, and here he has been thrust in the highest rank of the armed forces, and compared with what the situation at hand, what do you make of this?
Thank you, Lynn. It's just because I'm a Ugandan, and then I have to discuss things that pertain to Uganda, but under normal circumstances, the question of Muhoozi would not be even worth for us to discuss. But what I can say is that Museveni, I would say, betrayed or has betrayed all Ugandans, and in particular, those who went with him during the Bush War, who were patriotic, who knew that they were indeed fighting for a good cause, and indeed they wanted to bring a fundamental change to the country. And only to be disappointed that Museveni was using the same playbook or even a worse playbook than what he was choosing that was not going right in the country. I don't think, though, that Muhoozi will be any good for the country in as far as leading the army strategically, because our constitution gives us, the people of Uganda, the right that the army are our servants, and that's what we thought and believed in. But over the time, we have been seeing that this institution of the army that is supposed to be a people's army has been reduced into security guards for an individual. That's why Okot said that he saw Muhoozi beginning as an LDU and now goes on graduating into now to a CDF of the army. For me, it wouldn't be a problem. But where the problem lies is reducing the army, which is supposed to be my army, your army, Miriam's army, Okot's army, to be indeed an LDU for a family. I quote, Muhoozi has ever said that that his army, his father's army, and his father also says my army. So which says that we are out of the equation as Ugandans, and that is not good news. Then number two, it casts a very bad image. Believe me, Lynn, whether you accept or you agree with me or not, if anything happens in Uganda, even right now, the army itself is divided. You would see a series of factions like what happened in Libya, if anything ever happens in Uganda. Because if you look at that 10-point program. No, let me talk about the preamble of our constitution. The preamble of our constitution, even including the 10-point program, but the preamble of our constitution says that we are fighting political and constitutional instability. That is in the preamble of our constitution. Now, when you get your son, when you change the people's army into your army, that is a constitutional instability. Now, when you get a serving army officer moving the way how he has been traversing the country, making parties, you still remember the other time there were birthday parties and so on, that is casting political instability. And we can go on and on and on and on. So, now, the appointment of Muhoozi confirms that Museveni is ready to continue ditching our country, is ready to continue like making it official for the monarch. Don't get surprised tomorrow to hear that maybe the daughter is now the governor, Bank of Uganda. No. Let's be sincere. You have ever heard that when they were interviewing people in Bank of Uganda and so on, there was a speculation that they would first go to Salim Saleh to ask them, interviewing them. So, which means, is Salim Saleh the chief executive officer of Bank of Uganda? to carry out such a technical interviews. So that speaks it all, and so many others that we can go on and on and on. But to me, my appeal would be that Museveni would come back to his senses and then says, okay, where are we heading as Uganda, or which Uganda am I leaving? Definitely he will have to go by all means, either by natural occurrences, like as how I can also live. Today I'm speaking, tomorrow you may hear Francis is not there. But I always mind about the legacy that I leave behind. And if for me, I have had an opportunity, I normally have a conversation with my siblings back home, that if we had an opportunity to find our home, our parents had prepared it with trees around and fruits. Why then should we cut them? Why can't we leave it with more tree fruits and so on? So similarly, that's where I'm just looking at Museveni, and then of course the son and the entire family, and saying that they have always, or they are taking us into a dangerous path. Thank you.
Oh yes, thank you so much, Francis. Coming to you, Miriam. I'm seeing here the Al Jazeera is writing that to many Ugandans, Kainerugab's position as heir apparent has long been obvious, but the government has in the past taken a harsh line against anyone discussing the matter. If you remember, there's a time that the Muhoozi project came up, and some radio stations and newspapers were shut down, because of fueling those remarks. But we see that his appointment to the helm of the military is sort of preparing him for what's to come, and having his loyalists around him in cabinet, and perhaps we might see soon we might see a new face, in the name of his son. So do you think we are getting to, or we are wading into those controversial conversations of the successor eventually?
Those like the Jazeera said, I mean, that's like the obvious, and it's been the obvious for a long time. If you remember, there are people who talked about all these project pipeline long time ago, like Honorable Winnie Byanyima and the rest, and that's why some of them had to leave the NRM, because it was no longer expressing their vision, their original vision. It had become a M7 project. I don't even want to call it like a Mhos project. I think it's a M7 project. His son-in-laws are controlling the oil. He's one of the it's either family, friends, the wife, the children, and their allies. Close friends to the family, not to the politics even. It's not even the NRM party. So to me, as instead of looking it as a project coming, I rather look at it as another failing step for Uganda as a country. It's one extra step down the hill, and we are going so fast. We are becoming small as a country, whereas the individual is becoming larger than all of us, and that's a recipe for disaster. Now look at UPDF. Instead of Museveni building UPDF to leave behind as a professional army, is instead minimizing it to a personal, like Francis called it. It's like a personal guarding force. It's like a security agency for the family and their interests. That's unfortunate for Uganda as a project. That's unfortunate for us who are looking at Uganda as a young country which should be strengthening itself to compete globally in the global economy for resources and for survival of its own people. Today, if you look at East Africa, because Museveni is either incompetent or he lacks because he has surrounded with himself with people who can't do the right thing in the right time. Now look at East Africa, the countries Uganda used to be ahead of all these countries, most of these in East Africa, but now look at them, look at Tanzania and how far they are leaping towards development as far as infrastructure and economic development is concerned. And soon the education will be gone. Uganda used to pride itself with its good education in the region. But if we continue like this, like today now, Makerere is like a personal project because the wife of the president doesn't want some things can't happen. Yeah, yesterday I was chatting with a student, a former student who was, I think it was a group of like 4 students who were dismissed since last year because they mobilized to protest like all other students, but because maybe they were wearing different political colors, they were suspended indefinitely, and now their future is in jeopardy because, I mean, and the university has been politicized. It's no longer the leadership grooming area and grooming space for thinkers, independent thinkers, as it should be, because the academia should be like that island where the personal politics, the smaller politics shouldn't be interfering with the young people's ideas and career development. But today it's the opposite. Well, if you're a professor and you can't criticize the government. So we have lost philosophers, we have lost independent thinkers who would come and throw around ideas for other people to think about as a nation. So ideologically, we don't have those ideas floating around which would aspire people to see where the country is going forward, the future of Uganda, the future of Africa, because you fear you fear to interfere with the powers that be which are surrounding you. It could be your child who's going to be affected, it could be your job, and so when you look at even the civil society, that's why they talk about the shrinking space. I mean, it's shrinking space in every other sector, now including the UPDF. Now imagine who is going to disagree with the son of a president. The president is the commander-in-chief and the other one is the chief commander, whatever. I mean, I don't even know where the difference lies in there, and the lines are blurred in. And the wife is the minister, then the children are everywhere controlling everything. Then they talked about de facto leaders who have no power but have everything, like Salim Sari, and that's the brother. So now it's a personal, it's not even a monarchy would be arranged differently because the chief, like the clan leaders have independent authority over some sectors in some monarchies. Uganda is now like more of a personal property. But the unfortunate thing, it's like we are looking at history repeating itself. All these things have happened before. Museveni is not being a genius recreating something that has never happened. It happened in Libya and see where they are today. It happened in Niger. Where is it today? Angola was like the president, I think, stepped aside and stopped it before it crashed the economy. And now they are back in the line, and then the children, the president's children, former president's children who have looted the economy were brought back to order. But why should we wait for disaster to happen as Ugandans? Why are we looking on as we see all this volcano is boiling and it's about to destroy us? Because we all know what happens in the end. It's not like Museveni is building a success and everything is okay. I mean, we have become a kingdom and all that, and things are going to be fine. Of course, there are people who will challenge that, but in what way? So people who will disagree with the powers that be, because there are no more democratic channels to express that those disagreements and dissenting ideas. And in the end, there is only like one narrow process to take, and he is reducing us into that tunnel.
Yes, indeed. We certainly don't even know where we lie or where we fall or what's next for us, or if we have a say at all. Indeed, but with all this, NRM supporters and loyalists are saying that this is all just a normal occurrence, a shuffle and picking on people who have been, good to the party. And of course, with Muhoozi, at the helm of the military, we know that, well, in the argument, he has worked for it. He's been there. He's studied. He's played a crucial role in the development of this military, of the UPDF. And so a well-deserved position, well, with very many questions. Now, with all that said, we realize that we are also in a period where we are preparing for elections. And as you might be aware, of course, the NRM is already strategizing ahead of the 2026 general elections. And we are seeing that political parties are fighting each other. We are seeing that the biggest political party in the country is just there. Opposition leaders are mauling each other. To come to you, Okot, I want to ask that over the years, and this I have noticed, or I have witnessed, I have seen continuously over the years, usually towards the elections, the NRM is strategizing, is always well positioned, and the opposition is either falling apart or picking up broken pieces or is in shambles. At some point in the time, the president said that by 2026 we'll have no opposition, and I'm worried this might come true.
Yes, thank you so much. And if you might even just permit me to a little bit then backpedal on the comments that were briefly made by my colleagues. I want to say that, a person like me, coming from my previous political kind of history, I find that the 1981 folks went to the bush to fight. It was completely deceptive. They had actually no reason, because if you look back, General Museveni was defeated in his own home constituency. Okay? And two, he was actually the vice president. He was the vice of the military commission. He had a lot of guys within the army. And above all, when they came to power, I don't know whether actually they remain and projected the so-called fundamental change. That's debatable. So I believe that actually those who were duped went to the bush that to bring fundamental change were misled. And many have realized over the years. I think there were better options to build the UNLA. It was a national army. It wasn't a personal army. It wasn't a UPC army. It was, an army of almost all the functions, including FONASA was part of it. So I think General Museveni had his own intention. If you recall, there's been actually a video going on in the social media in 86. He told Ugandans that Ugandans should actually forget and focus on other things. They will stay in power for some time. So it's not a surprise what's happening. Okay, now back to your question about political parties and opposition being always in disarray towards elections. It's not by omission. It's always been designed. It's intentional, and there are heavy hands of the external, forces that are involved. If you look, almost every political entity in the opposition has experienced this similar nightmare. From UPC. It actually started even in the late 80s. There were functions for Imar Silogwal, and then there was a function for the late Professor Adoniat Virondas. Then later on became the Dr. Ranyare and Silogwal. You go to DP, is the same. Right now we have the Lubegas function of DP. We have the ones of the Mau are there. We have now UPC, Akena, and then there's Peter Walobiri and my friend, Joseph Ocheno there. So all this has been ongoing. You find that the ones that have a upper hand in the party actually are allied to the state. Akena, Jim Akena, my friend, is not the constitutional leader of UPC. Even the High Court of Uganda, ruled. But because he had the state apparatus behind him. General Kaihura, aided, they came, they stormed Uganda House, they caught Dr. Laro Tunu captive and his team were taken out forcefully. And a group occupied Uganda House up to present. And now, things are going as if it's constitutional. The court ruled that is not the leader. Checking with my good friend Joseph will tell you more, with more kind of facts on the ground there. You come to DP, right now they have the same chaos. The side that is strong is allied to the state. Okay? FDC is the same. You find now we have the Mafabi, and Amoriat Patrick, and then you have now the mayor and BCG the other side. Once a very powerful party like FDC, but now it's very weak. You could even see now they couldn't do even much in Dokulo because they were fragmented. Okay? NUP was the only hope, for Ugandans because it had very many new faces, young blood, and also to some degree they have a charismatic, leader in the sense that he's a celebrity. He can easily resonate with the crowd, So Ugandans had very high hopes in him. But as I told you, the state is always very manipulative. And if you now realize now in parliament, almost half of the NUP MPs are split, are fractured. And don't be surprised that even there might emerge another political entity within NUP. There's the Mpuga function, then there's the Bobby Wine function. And from where I can sit, the two are even unable to sit and harness the contradictions and the gaps that are there. Why do you think that? Because there's some external, That means you can imagine if the former LOP leader could be rewarded for doing a good job, okay? And this came up in the open. How about underground? How much do you think would have gone underground unnoticed? Okay? And above all, I can say the parties are completely fractured. On this platform, I've maintained on so many occasions, based on my own professional background, I can tell you, I've said that Uganda is a combination of multiple states that came together to form Uganda. Okay? So when you are going for an election, coalitions are very, very critical and central. The cultural, religious, ethno-regional dynamics play in. For instance, FDC was a very strong opposition party. It's a national party. In 2006, 2011, they had support in the east, in the north, in West Nile, in the central, and parts of the Kongiri and Western Uganda, Kasese. Okay, it was very national, well represented. But I can tell you, Mr. Museveni, with his machineries, are very, very, very smart. He's very cunning. He went in and deflated that very well. Now you find that right now, FDC was once a national party, is not going to be more of a regional party. You understand? The Mafabi Amuriat side is going to be more of what? The far eastern Uganda and part of what? Northern Uganda. While the other of Besige and Lukwago is going to be more in the south. In that way, you are losing what, your grip, the power. Even UPC, we had the same dynamics. That's how it came to power. It had to divide, the Acholi and UPC and Langi, that UPC division. That's how it came in power. Okay? So the moment you don't take into account any political scientist or any security and ethno-political analyst, practitioner by training, will tell you these are some of the factors. We'll tell you that. If you talk about, you may think you're being, subjective, but these are real. The interest groups, identities are very, very critical. So right now, General Museveni has very, very cunningly fractured the country, the opposition. They are not united. Okay? You find Patrick Amuriat and Besige can hardly see eye to eye. Even Norbert Mao can hardly sit with Besige. Okay? Akena, the same thing, cannot sit down with Besige or Bobby Wine. So how can the opposition, thrive in such a, a situation? I would think there would be more kind of instrumental and influential if they could join hands. Look at other neighboring countries like Kenya. You'll find that every kind of party, they form alliances. Look at Ruto. Okay, he brought on board a person like Fort Kenya, Moses Wetangula with Fort Kenya. It's a very small party, just only found in Bukusu, in Loyaland, in Trans Nzoia and Bugoma. But he has MPs. He's on board with his alliance. A guy like the chief CS Mudavadi with his ANC party, just in Vihiga, among the Maragoli communities, a small party. But what is the alliance? The national government, UDA. You go to the coast, the Speaker of Parliament, Kingi, that's a small party, UPA, is in an alliance. So the only thing Ugandans opposition can make a strong, front is by having a unified front. You cannot operate in isolation to tackle a government of this kind of Museveni. Is well grounded, very strong. They have the finances, they have the military, they have been around. The entire generation does not understand anything else. Those who were born from 1985 to present know nothing except the raw propaganda of the NRM organization. And they are part of the story. Very few. Even your generation, you grew up under, the same song. So it's not easy to even transform, to win the minds and hearts of those below 40. It will take a hard work below 40. If you talk to the youth of nowadays, and if I compare the youth of nowadays, the student leaders, the youth out of my time, during the late 90s and early 2000s in university, we are very different. Ideologically, very different. Very different. So I would think that, Museveni is very cunning. He has systematically, compromised the opposition, and his dream that he once said that by maybe 2026, there'll be no opposition, might be coming to, to some fruition. Ugandans are discontented. There's a lot of resentment, but there's no leadership in the opposition. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ochen, for that. I see something I probably missed earlier. Francis was talking about the 10-point program when scored against its rubric. The NRM scores 0 on its 10-point program and is a betrayal to patriotic Ugandans who fought in the bush war for genuine reasons, and hence, okay, the 10-point program is there. Okay, all right. Miriam says true total failure. And I come to you
That's
first
where
now.
that's where I responded. I read that comment. That's where I had to come in about the elections and so on. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so we are now looking at, because all the things that are happening right now are leading up to 2026. Now we're seeing that in the opposition camp, there seems to be no clear challenger as of now. It might be a little too early, perhaps, with four-time presidential candidate and former Forum for Democratic Change president Dr. Chiza Besigye heading back to the grassroots to consult on whether he should form a new party, a decision he hopes he will be made in the coming months after nationwide meetings. Now, the chaos in the FDC, which of course you have alluded to, were formed and led for several years, did not allow for reconciliation after the party members accused leaders of receiving money from President Museveni, blah, 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 to weaken the party during the 2021 general elections. Now, in the National Unity Platform, the party that sent shockwaves to the ruling party during the previous general elections, after defeating nearly all constituencies in the central region, particularly the heart of the country, of course, fault lines. We're seeing fault lines that are forming and are widening, and they're really worrying. And we're actually looking at a shaky Buganda situation, because NUP was holding Buganda together, but we are seeing a problem. Now, not so long ago, allow me, we saw that there was a party, a new political party, and that is PLU. Is it the game changer here, Francis?
Thank you, Lynn. Your question, no, it's loaded. But let me begin like this and reiterate myself. Number one, Ugandans, we were robbed of our right to determine the form of governance. And Museveni has continued to do that. Why? Number one, the NRM has resorted to being a tyranny because they exercise excessive power of control, which power, by elections, people are the ones supposed to entrust you with power to lead and guide and utilize resources. So they are using that against us, and it has turned into, or the NRM has turned into tyrants. They are terrorizing Ugandans. That is on record. Number two, there is constant oppression. And what do I mean here? The unjust treatment of Ugandans, both in service delivery and in expressing themselves. That one we have seen how there is arbitrary arrests and so on and so forth. Then number three, there is exploitation, corruption, misuse of resources, displacement of people from their land and so on, and then making a good percentage of Ugandans, or the biggest percentage, into destitutes. And now, once that ground is leveled like that, now coupled with the political and constitutional instability in the country, which Okot elaborated very well, the NRM partly disorganizing the opposition parties and so on, then it creates a confusion under which the NRM now assumes to thrive, because that is the game that they know. And then if we can go deeper into that, what does it create? Then it creates disunity. It destabilizes peace. It has completely eroded the element of at least equality and equity. because in Uganda there are those who are more equal than others. Whether we agree that society, there will always be the rule and the rulers and the ruled, but they are doing it for the good of those who are either less privileged or because all of us cannot be in leadership, through some kind of trust. Like we are trusting you with managing the country resources, with doing this for the sake of our growth and development together. Then, of course, freedom. Now, once all that you put them in one pot, then it's where now you come and see these different political parties, the commotion that is coming in, and so on. All that I say, political and constitutional instability. If Museveni had not lifted the presidential term limit and the age limit, we would not be having all this confusion. It is easy, come, serve your country, retire honorably, and then we shall keep respecting you as a senior citizen. I don't know even how to classify Museveni, whether he's a senior citizen, whether he's a confused citizen who wants to confuse more other people to join the bandwagon. I don't know exactly what he's trying to create. And because of that, then I would say that we who are in opposition, we have not been given an opportunity. For example, like the ANT, the Alliance for National Transformation, we have not been given an opportunity to freely explain to the Ugandans what agenda we have for the country or alternatives that we have, and to allow freely express our grievances or to show Ugandan this is not going right, but this is the product that we have that you can buy into. And that has also happened to other political parties like the MOVE, the FDC, and so on. So that once the ground is leveled for everyone, then Ugandans have the freedom now to choose the form of government that should govern them. That is why we came up, or the 1995 Constitution was promulgated. But we have not lived to see that come to fruition because Museveni has decided to become Uganda, and Uganda is himself. Nobody will dare to say anything. And that's why you see now he keeps slicing it. He wakes up and says, why don't my son get this? By the way, I think one of the things that Museveni needs to be reminded, he needs to give a ministerial position to the grandson or granddaughter, because that's where he's heading to. But is that a healthy way to do it? The answer is no. And all this that he's doing and all this confusion, as we head to 2026, it indeed shows that for him, he has already determined that he's going to rig the elections as much as he can. That's why you see, even when they were updating the yellow book, they are saying they are registering even people of, I don't know, 15 years, I'm not sure, but there are those whom they are registering who have not yet reached the age of voting. But you are registering them. The Constitution of Uganda still considers them as children. So, and by default, children are not supposed to be partisan. But you can see how deep the NRM government has gone. But on top of that, if they were using their own resources, I would say yes. But using the resources that belong to all Ugandans, and for all this time all Ugandans have given them the opportunity to lead, they no longer have anything to offer. Lynn, allow me to just bring in the element of the recent scandals in as far as misuse of public funds is concerned. Although now the person being picked out is only Mpuga, but let's go deep. Where did it start and where is it leading us? So I think these conversations have to come. And on top of that, when all this unfolds, what does the president do? Like, what does Museveni and the NRM do? Start from the Namuganza saga, come to the Iron Sheet saga, now come to the current. All these are resources being misused. And all these, let's say, Matia Kaseja would claim has given the Iron Sheets, even the current prime minister, they have given the Iron Sheets in their constituency. But is this fair? So tomorrow they will go. They say they gave Iron Sheets, but are they the ones who gave Iron Sheets, or these were resources for Uganda, for all Ugandans? And now tomorrow Kamuhanda is going to campaign or to go into an elective position. And then here is Namuganza, who gave the Iron Sheets that belong to all of us to a certain constituency, and now he's saying, I gave you. And here is Francis, they say you have not given us anything. That in itself is entrenched corruption, going to corrupt the minds of the voters or of the common Ugandan for the sake of preparing for an election that is not free and fair. So I see ourselves as Ugandans, if we would achieve real right to determine the form of government that we need come 2026, we would all be allowed as political actors to reach out to the people of Uganda freely and explain to them what we have for them. And then they decide who has the best package that can take this country forward. Thank you.
Indeed, who has the best package that can take the country forward? Well, that has been a challenge in the longest time I have known, really. Miriam in the chat room says freedom is fought for Francis. Okay, and talking of Miriam, if you remember, Uganda's, well, now technically the strongest opposition party, the National Unity Platform, last year it launched a mobilization drive. They called Kunga Uganda, and declared motive was to galvanize the party's structure. I don't know where that project ended. I don't know if they're still on it. But instead, this drive has divided the party, especially in Uganda, with the NRM, of course, ready to take advantage in the 2026 general elections. However, PLU, I don't know if this party, with its figurehead now a general, of course, the commander of the defense forces. I don't know. It was supposed to bring some new, dimension to the country's political landscape. And actually, people were saying that because of its unique composition, it has all sorts of people, an ambitious agenda, had the potential to reshape the dynamics of Ugandan politics. But now, are we going to see all that come to light with whatever is happening with all the other opposition parties? Now, I don't know where we are in terms of multi-party politics. What do you say, Miriam?
I think the BLOU, whatever. Wasn't it a pressure group? Was it a political party yet? I beg to be corrected, but I think it was there.
Yeah, I also don't understand at this point what it was.
I think it was still like a pressure group, and if the son was pressurizing the father to get a position, he got it. I don't know what they were pressurizing for, but if you look deep into that, I think that whole saga, the whole project, whatever that was just some decoy to disorganize people, to confuse Ugandans into believing that something was going on politically, but I don't think it was headed anywhere. It's just another of those, one of those other NRM tricks. So this day we don't have the Entandikwa, we don't have the Whereas creation. So we had the project because they didn't have money to throw around and confuse us. But back to Francis, why I said that freedom is fought for. Francis was lamenting that AND was never given a chance to campaign. Oh, dear Ugandans, today I want to be a devil's advocate. Freedom is fought for. Nobody gave Museveni a platform in 1980. Nobody gave Lumumba or Nkrumah a platform to liberate Ghana for independence. I think we have slept too much. Museveni is doing whatever he wants. Yes, he's just one Ugandan. What about us? What are we doing if we don't agree with him? What are we doing to disagree with him, or to also push forward our own visions or whatever we think Uganda should be going? I think we maybe because we were coming from a long traumatic period of political conflicts, and Ugandans had relaxed, like they were hoping for some peaceful kind of political change where we can have systems. We have reached at that age where fighting for power is no longer a viable option because it destroys the economy, destroys people's lives and all that. But there are other ways, I think. I think there are other ways. How did Sudanese kick Bashir out? How did Egyptians kick Mubarak out? We don't have to get the guns and shoot in the air or whatever, bomb the buildings like Israel is doing in Palestine, or what Museveni did in 1986. But I think we are sleeping too much and we are waiting for Museveni to give us the power, yet he's also pushing for his own personal agenda. What are our personal agendas? Museveni is just one Ugandan. What about us? So for me, I want to call upon political parties, especially ANC, FDC, somewhere with people fighting for handouts. Come on. And I want to reiterate what Bessie said sometime back. Our political parties today are viable vehicle for political transition or causing power change in Uganda. Is it possible? With the electoral commission we have, with the shrinking political space we have. You see Francis here crying for space when he's supposed to look for space. Francis, as a leader of ANC, we expect you to push for your own space. And please, wake up and do that. Museveni will not give you that. If he's a dictator, he's a dictator. But challenge him on that. Take him on that and look for your space. The constitution gives you that. And we have had a parliament which is just there for handouts. And like I said, politically, it's like we went to the narrow path of dictatorship, and now we are just like caught in a net of whatever Museveni had built for himself to control his own personal power, him and his family, and we are left just outside there like grasshoppers in a bottle bird. I think it's time for Ugandans to wake up. I don't know how we're going to do it. We're going to do it whichever way is open for us, whichever way is viable. I think there is a way somewhere, and it's time we look for that way and cause the change we want. I don't want to be the one on the lamenting side anymore. No more. I think we are capable of doing something, and we should do it. If Palestinians, even when they are bombed and they are under siege, can campaign for their own freedom, and now countries even like USA, which used to support Israel, have advocated for ceasefire. If people who are under bondage can advocate for their own freedom, and you say like they don't really have space, what about us who have everything still open? Museveni could be in control of resources and a few things here and there, but he's not really chaining us enough to stop us from pushing for whatever changes we want to see happening. So it's time we wake up.
Absolutely, we need to wake up. It's very disturbing where we are as a country. I remember as a young girl in 2006 when we were starting off the multi-party politics. I remember us debating it so heavily in school and, sort of excited about multi-party politics and all those things. And here we are. I still do not see the true meaning of multi-party politics because we know one party. When other parties crop up, somehow the bigger party sort of shuts them down. So I still don't understand. I still look like that little girl back then when I was like, what is multi-party politics? And here we are still asking myself, how does it play out? And maybe to pick your minds if there are any queries or rather comments on what has been said so far, before we can take a look at this interesting parliament exhibition that has brought to fore a lot of rot in our parliament. I don't know, let me take a look at the chat room if you have any comments so far. Okot says nothing comes on a silver platter, yes. It's a pressure group. Oh, okay, fantastic. Thank you. Okay. So if
let me just make a brief comment on
yes,
what
please,
has been stated, and I must say I want to thank my colleagues, and I want to say that I'm on the same wavelength with Miriam when it comes about freedom. There's nothing that comes, on the silver plate. You have to sweat for it. Mr. Museveni, is where he is, not because, he got things on a silver plate. He went out there and imposed himself, successfully on Uganda. And he has also, made his vision, his ideology work. He had his own vision for Uganda. He forcefully implemented it, and those are his dreams. So I do concur with Miriam to that area. Then we are asking that how can Ugandans overcome this? I just know that there are few kind of obstacles to that path because of our current political environment, the socio-economic political environment kind of, makes, the things a little bit a challenge. And also, as I said before, there's a generational also challenge. If you talk to the youth and the students of nowadays, they have a completely variant ideology. In most revolutions or struggles, the students and the youth are the engine of any change. In most countries, the seniors, the young adults who already maybe in such age, 40 and above, just provide leadership. But most of the foot soldiers would be, the students, the youth, and the youngsters. You look next door. I always give example, Kenya. There are things that happen in Uganda cannot happen in Kenya. They can paralyze the country. Leaders will come, just call their followers, and the youngsters, the youth, and they will go and take charge. But so in Uganda, we have successfully been, tamed using the carrot stick approach, whereby here and there, the carrots are dangled in their throats. So they calm down. And when you come out too, they also get the stick, to shut you down. And I think the NRM organization and its allies have done that successfully. The police, the army. So the ground is not actually what leveled, for any meaningful electioneering or democratic, revolution. The grounds are not leveled, So, and again, do you get just on a silver plate the grounds? No. In any negotiation, to have meaningful negotiation for any transformation, you must be able to inflict some pain on your opponents, and then you can have any meaningful negotiation. If you cannot inflict any damage, inflict any kind of pain on your opponent, it will not care. So right now, the opposition and the civil society are not able to speech the NRM and Museveni, so that he is not bothered. Look next door, Kenya, the Congo, DRC Congo, they are able to go back to electioneering. They're not perfect. Or even in South Africa, because they have a vibrant opposition that can sometimes shut down the government in power. So in Uganda, we don't have alternative, voices. We just have a few. We are very disorganized, very disorganized. We lack leadership. You know, I had hope in KB, Kizza Besigye. When he came out in 1999, 2001, you know, I was a student then, you know, in Makerere. It was very inspiring. But I can tell you that has already kind of evaporated. Even if he goes back to consult, I don't think he will have the same kind of, you know, energy to attract the masses. I also had hope in a leader like Bobby Wine. You know, I might not agree with him fully, but you know, he has followers. He can resonate with the vulnerable populations. He just needs to have the right team to advise him and mentor him. But also, again, becoming too late. You know, I wish we could have a good team, you know, who can support him, guide him, nurture him to put up, you know, a genuine kind of challenge. Yeah, so thank you. It's just my general comment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Okot. I doubt he's teachable, but yeah, to see how that works out. Now, I see there's a comment. Francis in the chat room says the NRM has committed 5 heinous acts against Ugandans and the constitution as far as political dispensation is concerned. And he says 1, political and constitutional instability; 2, unleashed tyranny, oppression, and exploitation of Ugandans; 3, dismantled socio-economic and political fabric, derailed unity, peace, equality, democracy, freedom, social progress, denied citizens the right to determine the form of governance. That is Francis Kamuhanda for you there. Now, if we can, in the next 30 minutes, if we can delve briefly into what has been happening in our social activism space now that it is actually rapidly growing. We have not been the past 3 weeks have not been the best for the second most important institution in nation building, and that is Parliament. Now, a group of people under the Agora discourse initiated what they termed as the Parliament exhibition, where several stories were brought to light on how allegedly money is being misused by the institution. And this is where I think most of the chaos in the National Unity Platform, okay, there's been issues, but this also fueled what had been, happening in the National Unity Platform. We saw that they were accusing senior leaders, of course, and labeling them corrupt and fraudulent. There was lots of issues happening. And so when you hinted on political leaders, especially in Parliament, who eventually get sidelined, eventually get given some money, and you never know at the end of the day if they're opposition or if they're pro the NRM. And so I ask, and I come to you, I will begin with you, Francis, on this. What do you make of our social activism? And when you look at what's happening in Parliament with all those legislators in Parliament, all those monies being spent on them, and them coming to us denying the allegations, yet we expect better of our leaders. Really, what do you make of this? Is this accountability or is this a witch hunt? Someone was asking.
Well, thank you, Lynn. Number one, I will first give a comment on the advice that Miriam and Okot gave me, that we can't wait for Museveni to just give us that space to express ourselves, but we have to fight for it. That point is taken, and I take it very serious. But, it is also important to acknowledge that you need to be cognizant of the fact that if the majority of the Ugandans, they don't know where we are supposed to be in terms of civic education, then it becomes extremely hard to raise that momentum to be able to take on Museveni in the other alternative ways that there can be. So, having said that, then we come back to the institution of parliament and what is going on. Lynn, one of the things that I would first say, the biggest mistake that was made was to allow that parliament can spend from a consolidated fund. Number two, determining their own emoluments. Like any other public servant, that was a mistake. Now, every time, I don't know, that they see either money lying idle there, then I don't know whether it is lying idle where most of the Ugandans are wishing in poverty. Then they feel like it is high time they should reward themselves. But also coupled with that, in Uganda, it's where we have people waking up from wherever they are, and then they come and assume offices of responsibility. If I can go back to the words of P.L. Lumumba, the professor from Kenya, who said that even when we know that they were village fools. So, in Uganda, not until we begin asking ourselves, who are we entrusting with the office that is responsible for serving us? And not until our leaders begin realizing that they are in these positions not to serve themselves, but to serve Ugandans, and then follow the appropriate rules. But Lynn will always forgive us to bring all that to Museveni, because the fish will begin rotting from the head. We have had a series of scenarios that have taken place, or scandals, but the president is always there to cover them. And once he covers them, then they keep on growing and growing, and people become thirsty and thirsty in as far as corruption is concerned, in as far as embezzlement is concerned, in as far as doing a lot of atrocities, and then they go scot-free. Just they do them with impunity. That's why you find maybe the Speaker of Parliament or a given member of Parliament or any other person in the position of leadership will even stand and say, you will do nothing to me. Others have even said that even if they are reported to God, they have ever uttered such a statement. So, if you look at all that, it leaves us into a fix, then going back to what Miriam said, that as Ugandans would say, enough is enough. There should be something that should be done in whatever means that is needed. Because why I'm saying that some of the leaders, I don't know whether they know or they need to be educated. Because since when, Lynn, in the responsibilities of a member of parliament, did a member of parliament, one of his responsibilities being to buy an ambulance or to construct a hospital? So, all this, and where did they get money? If the government can fail to construct a hospital, for example, how do you tell me that an individual working in government has constructed a hospital? Which hospital, when people go there, it is alleged that they are not supposed to pay, for example. If it was a private hospital, I would know. But now, who is paying for the medication? And so on and so forth. All these are questions. And that's why I would say that, but it is also useless, because some of these things, the IGG normally goes and produces a report, but it is kept in the shelves, and only to realize that a lot of money then has been sunk into a commission of inquiry. But it would be a high time for a genuine government with good intentions to do a forensic audit. Not only in as far as parliament is concerned, but nearly in all institutions of government. The 10-point program, one of the points was that the NRM is going to usher in economic stability, where we become self-sustaining. Now, how can we become self-sustaining with the amount of debt? Even when money is borrowed, it does not go to designated projects. Instead, it goes into the pockets of individuals. Yes, I would say that I may disagree with the NUP in the approach they used, but at least they made an attempt to say this is wrong and we are not going to tolerate it. What about the NRM that is not having only one scandal, but the whole of NRM is a scandalous entity up to the home of the president, the kind of extravagance that is there. So to me, I think our parliament, which I really, right away from the word go, I was doubting it. From when they were voted, I was looking at the kind of parliament that we have and the level of debate that was there. But if they can and think about the people who entrusted them with this office, and then they say, no, we have to work for Ugandans, and we have to change our lifestyle, and we have to ensure that resources are used in accordance to what the Constitution deems, or the people who sent us to represent them. But otherwise, I don't see the use of the parliament of Uganda, apart from spending on them, and we are getting nothing in as far as their constitutional mandate is concerned. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Francis. Miriam, we've had a conversation previously about, I think there was a Ministry of Health exhibition on Twitter. There was KCCA. Now we have Parliament, and this is a new form of activism, terming social activism. The question here is will this in any way bring about accountability that we have for years yearned for as a country, that we have called upon our leaders for ages? Do you think this will bring them, the corrupt, the allegedly corrupt leaders, to book?
It's a good development, but it's a drop in the ocean, unfortunately. It would bring accountability if, say, if someone, okay, they are acting like whistleblowers, but if the institutions were to catch on and say, hey, let's investigate this, someone has said ABCD, something is going on. Like Francis said, at least NUP came up and says, hey, well, what are you doing? They are former LOP. What are you doing in your office? How did this happen? And as a party, we don't agree with the way you did your stuff. But what about, now look at NRM. What are they doing with their speaker? The speaker is from NRM party. What have they talked about the corruption going on in her office? And when there was a KCCA exhibition, I mean, what happened? There was nothing to even look into the mess that was going on at the officers that be. We see now the leader of opposition, Joel Senyonyi, going to the IGG even to petition, but the IGG is seeing whatever is going on. She shouldn't have to be, nobody has to knock on her door and say, hey, stuff is going on under your table. What are you doing about it? She should have caught up on and reacted to it. You see this exhibition, anyway, it's not, okay, it's the first time in Uganda, but countrywide it's been ongoing. This is the old stuff. It's something like we've seen whistleblowers like Julius Assange, and it's been years on, and they raise stuff. But the difference is in organized systems where there is transparency and accountability, people would look into whatever is put out there and say, hey, what are you hiding here? And the leaders would resign. They don't even wait to be pushed out of offices. And that's when the systems are working. But now what is going on the social media exhibition, it's like another knock on a hard rock. It's the system is already dead. I don't think the effect is gonna be that much anyway. But anyway, we welcome the development. Maybe something bigger is gonna come out of that small step. As the Chinese say, a long journey is accomplished by taking that first step. So it's a right step in the right direction, and it's not doing the right ways so far. Some people are really like they are personal attacks, they are uninformed comments out there, because social media is such an open kind of fora that everybody takes opportunity to do whatever. Some take scores there, their personal grudges, their political opponents who are going to abuse the space. So everything goes through that space. So that is something we have to look out for. But on the bigger picture, I think that it's a good step, and I wish to call upon other Ugandans who think they can contribute to are doing good to our society. If you know something you can do and it works, please try it. Like now we have to try everything to ensure that we create the nation we really want. And I want to go back to Francis earlier. I mean, not only Francis, but all of us Ugandans really. Like like someone said, you cannot free people who are enslaved by using the master's tools. Today, other political parties, Ochen was narrating how uniting opposition can bring change in Uganda. And yeah, it can, but uniting opposition is not going to change the electoral commission. Uniting opposition is not going to push the military out of elections. Uniting opposition is not going to stop the rigging and all the buying of votes and tampering with the registers and all that stuff that has characterized the Ugandan elections, including killing people and all that, denying people spaces. Francis is crying that his party doesn't even have any space to advocate for their agenda. So it's like, if we really want to see change happening, and it's not like I'm advocating for violence. I know there are other peaceful ways. We really have to look for a new way, not just trying to really like we the systems we have are not working so far. Yes, we have to acknowledge that, drop them, and look for something fresh, something which can really work for us. And we have to go against the grain, I think, to achieve that change. We can't babysit a problem. It's already there and we know it. And people have tried, let me tell you, to be an opposition leader in Uganda is really a sacrifice. Even to aspire to stand on an opposition seat as a member of parliament, or even an LC1 chairman, is a lot of sacrifice. You really struggle so much. Your house is going to be, your family is going to be persecuted. You're gonna be oppressed. They're gonna rig you. They're gonna frustrate you. They're gonna oppress you. It's a big deal. And once we see these people really coming up, we should applaud them and we should acknowledge that they have put in an effort and they are fighting for change. They are sacrificing a lot. They are going through a lot of pressure. But we need to do some more, some different, if we are to see any change happening, any considerable change happening in our body politic today.
Right. Interestingly, sometimes the things that happen around us in our political spheres, you wonder why we go to the elections every other 5 years, allegedly a democratic country, but there's so much that is going on that is really, really terrible. Let me take a look at what's happening in our chat room. Okot is saying, it is amazing. Okay, it says, sorry, it's bouncing off. Okay. It says it is amazing. Why do I keep missing it? Let me first read Francis's. I'm missing Okay. Here we go. It is amazing that Francis is in love with the 10-point program of the NRM as a point of reference. From day one, some of us knew it was decoy to hook naive Ugandans. Ugandans were taken for a ride by the NRM, and the rest is history. Francis says, I'm not in love with the 10-point program, but rather to hold NRM accountable to their own standards.
Are you there?
She froze.
Okay. Well,
I think, let me say something about the 10-point program. It was a good idea, really, and it wasn't Museveni's idea. There are so many people who the NRM movement was composed of, the cream of the society that day, and they sat together and put up a document that they think could work for Uganda. They were like our philosophers of that time. And that document was really good. And if at all they even implemented like 50% of those ideas, we would be far away from that. But the unfortunate part is that Museveni took advantage of that and used it to hoodwink Ugandans and entrench his dictatorship by deceiving us. Maybe that's why we are taken for a ride, because we assumed that he really has a good will for Uganda. But instead, I mean, the results are showing something different.
just to comment on that. Just to comment on that. I have two things to comment. Your first statement about your comment about opposition parties in Uganda might not make any meaningful change or to put the government to be accountable. When I say this, I always have historical context that I can refer to. If opposition would be galvanized and have a solid platform, and the civil society, they would actually pressure the government to have a more inclusive electoral commission that would be installed by all the interest groups. Not just
how do they organize when they don't have that space to organize?
That's I'm saying from historical context. There are countries that did that. If you look next door, Kenya again, the likes of Raila Odingas, the Kibakis, they forced Arab Moi, and people died on the street. And in the process, the Western world and the other powers had to put pressure on Arab Moi, to accept, even the World Bank, to accept certain conditions. I can tell you, Ugandans, we are cowards. That's the truth. We fear even tear gas. We tear gas them once or twice, everybody runs and falls on themselves. So you cannot make anything there. Some countries, people are hardliners. When there's a demonstration countrywide for months and months, a government will sit down with the opposition and talk, and reforms will come in place. It happened in the Congo. It might not be very genuine. It happened in Ghana, in Kenya. The historical context, you can sit and talk. Even in Sudan next door here, El-Bashir was a very hardliner. Towards the last minute, his remaining remnants allowed to sit down with the civil society. And that, although they have not succeeded, but it happened. So I think, I would strongly push that the civil society, the opposition should always work as a team, and maybe also try to attract external supporters to support them. It's doable. It's happened elsewhere.
Right. Thank you, Okot.
And then finally about the 10-point program.
Oh, yes.
That is actually a deception. Why? I can tell you the NRA did not have the popular will of the people. It used divide and rule. You know the history of the NRM and its founders. And two, during the 1980 elections, all the parties, what the NRM had in their 10-point program were instated in their manifestos. DP had a very comprehensive manifesto. CP, UPC, addressed all those things about national unity, revamping the economy, were all there. In fact, when they came in power in 86, they came empty-handed with just a 10-point program. They plagiarized page to page the UPC manifesto for repatriation of Uganda. So the 10-point program was a deception. And actually kind of fractured the country.
Okay. All right. Francis says, of course, the resilient tips of resistance is what we need from you. Okay, fantastic. All right. Any other comments? Because we have tackled quite a number of you hinted him there, but still in one as we head to 2026. And of course, we'll have more conversations, around that as time goes by. But now, where we are, indeed, as you can see, as you can repackage this conversation today, is exactly where the country is. We are in. It's not even a dilemma. It's some sort of maze of sorts. We are here. We are there. We don't know where we are heading next. Things don't look so clear now, but of course we know by 2026 we will have a clear path. So conclusively, I ask you, Francis, where are we headed with the road to 2026 now in our face, and we are more divided than ever and more confused than ever, and maybe some people are hopeful, I don't know. What next?
Thank you, Lynn. I do agree, like as I have stated, that the preamble of our constitution emphasized or premised on the ideology that Ugandans are divided and we need to be united, which was our prayer, but which again we have come to go back to square zero, which is unfortunate. And we need to still work very hard to ensure that if the dictator Museveni is pushed out of power, then the strings that held us together can again begin to be amended. But this, by the time he goes out of power, the rules he has caused to government desire a lot to be done in as far as bringing back the institution of government to functionality and so on. So that is point number one. Point number two, going back to Okot, if you look at the 10-point program that the NRM has, Mr. Okot, even in your submissions, is still part of those points are still part of them that we can sell, because it is not a preserve of the NRM. Like, for example, freedom of speech, the right to determine self-governance is not a monopoly of the NRM. Generally, for us, is what we are looking for. And to me, from a teacher perspective, you can't test somebody on the content that you did not teach them. The first litmus is to test the NRM, its integrity on what they promised Ugandans. I do agree with you that it is a deception. For them, they don't mean what they are saying. So now for us, it's on us to say that, okay, tomorrow when we also come into power, of course, believe me, you will say democracy. Like, what does it mean? They will also test you on that. It will not that it is deception, but how you use it or how you decide to define and dispense that democracy is what makes a difference. And to me, is where, of course, I can't make NRM accountable, for example, for industrialization of Uganda, because they are even far away from that. I would be putting them to a high standard that for me now we want to introduce when we come to power. But for them, on the simple things, you see they are completely off. But as I conclude, I say that number one, integrity is important in as far as our country is concerned, and transparency in what we are doing. And I do agree that it is true. If we don't look at a way of how we, the forces in the opposition, support each other and remain united, of course, with ensuring that since the civic space has been narrowed, but then we see how we force ourselves through it and try to expand on the little that we are still hanging on. But the movement is ready to completely finish everything, and then they have a monarch as how they want it. But we will not lose hope. We'll continue fighting with the means possible that we have, and of course, leaving all the options open up to when anything else as an alternative can also come and we use it. But otherwise, where we are at the brink of the country being ruined completely if we don't stand up and ensure that we keep pushing this level of impunity off from the table and bring back the constitutional rule in our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Francis, Miriam, conclusively.
I would like to, in conclusion, to call upon all Ugandans. We don't have to think that it's the duty of those people who have come out and identified themselves as politicians in opposition to liberate us from all this crisis we are in, the political crisis. It's our duty, all of us, and you can do something wherever you are. If you like Dr. Spire and others have done the exhibition, that's their contribution. Other people are doing advocacy. People like Francis are leading opposition political parties, and they are trying to push for change. Anybody, anywhere you are, be it in church or academia, or if you are a farmer, or if you are a boda rider, I think we all have a contribution to make, and we shouldn't just sit somewhere and wait for some people to do something for us. No, this is our duty as all citizens. And Francis, I want to remind you that 2026, we Ugandans in diaspora, we are supposed to be voting, and I haven't seen you doing anything, including campaigning as ANC. So talking of 2026, it's our responsibility, all of us, to really fight for our rights. It's our duty as citizens to also contribute in the political process. And Francis, I want to see you asking me for a vote for ANT. I want to see NUP campaigning in diaspora like everybody else, and we should hold the Electoral Commission accountable to come with a roadmap for us to register and vote wherever we are in the world, as the constitutional ruling, the constitutional court ruling stipulated. So that aside, there is something that we really missed out in the cabinet reshuffle. I think Seven did his best to kick out the Mawat thieves, which were like an eyesore. So all that group is out, except I think Rugolovi stayed. So maybe we applaud on that. And but my last comment is that we need to think out of the box. So far, I don't think that the elections or whatever it is that is going to happen in Uganda in 2026, I really am so pessimistic on that. If Ugandan electoral processes were drawn on a curve, I think we are even going there beyond the zero to the negative as far as electoral processes are concerned, as far as aspiring and building to get a free and fair election process is concerned. So we are slowly losing the small opportunity we have to change the political leadership peacefully. And the alternative is a bit scary, but it's possible. I'm not campaigning for violence, but there are other peaceful means that we can change in Uganda, and we should pursue that. If we don't have them on the table yet, let's think about them. Let's try to put our heads together and think out of the box. Thank you very much.
Right, fantastic. Think out of the box. And finally, Okot, we our past our minutes, so let's wind up quickly.
Thank you very much to everybody, and I must say I do concur with you all, your sentiments, and but in summary, I want to say that I can see in Uganda we are into the chimpanzee politics. This is the chimpanzee kind of the popcorn and the chimpanzee political theory is whereby they involves alliances, betrayals, manipulations, and even assassinations. They engage in complex political maneuvers to gain and maintain power. That is theory. But in general, I would urge Ugandans that let's pull up our socks and try to mobilize. There's always hope. If we have a strong civil society, other alternative political entities to get out there and try to enlighten the masses about their rights, about their aspirations, and they can be pushed and make some changes. But what I think is that, as Miriam said, I don't think we are going to attain any kind of meaningful change, with this kind of environment, unless at this time God intervenes. Because even the election you are having coming up is just a gimmick. It's a gimmick. If you have taken part in the elections in Uganda, I can tell you, they even manufacture, bichipuli currencies. They dish out just fake money in sacks. So it's a very complicated thing. But what I would urge is we need national unity, and among Ugandans, so that when Museveni tries to utilize other identity dynamics to fragment the forces for change, then it will fail. If we are in one kind of path, because we are very fractured and wounded country, we actually need truth-telling, healing, reconciliation within the country. And that has undermined even the struggle to bring change. You can imagine, if you sit even in FDC, there are those who are glorifying the Bush war. There are those who never would accept the Bush war was right. Even that already plagues opposition. Even what they change, advocates, proponents. Because historical context, the historical, even context itself. So we are very fractured as a nation. We need to harmonize a lot of things. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Okot. Thank you so much, Francis and Miriam, for joining us today on our Uganda Diaspora conversation. And we hope to have more of these as we prepare for the year 2026. But I won't leave without reading what's in the chat room. Okot says, Francis, we need to explore our options out there to check on the dictatorship. Francis says, I was at the embassy recently asking for the mechanism, I think in reference to diaspora voting, but everything looks unclear. I agree elections in Uganda is a scam, but it gives us the opportunity to uncover the evils of government, regardless of the oppression and tyranny involved, including death. Okay, thank you, ladies, actually, including myself, and gentlemen.
Thank you to everyone. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Everyone.
Absolutely. We'll catch you again next time.